It all started with a favor, innocent, harmless, and something I'd done a dozen times before. My little brother, Tyler, showed up at my apartment around noon on a rainy Thursday. He had that look on his face, the one I'd seen since we were kids, a mix of charm and desperation. Like he was asking for a kidney, but trying to make it sound like a cup of coffee, Cassie? He began, already peeking into the fridge like he lived there. Can I borrow your car for a couple hours? I gotta run a few errands before the weekend, groceries, dry cleaning, maybe swing by Mom's. I didn't even hesitate. That was my first mistake, sure, I said, tossing him the keys to my silver Honda Civic. Don't forget to put gas in it this time, promise. He grinned, snatching the keys midair and already halfway out the door. Love you. That was at 12:15 p.m. By 6 p.m., I hadn't heard a word. By 7:30 p.m., I was starting to worry until my phone buzzed with a notification from the City Impound. Notice of vehicle tow. Plate number 7FJX for 2, violation unauthorized. Parking. Time. 5:02 p.m. My stomach dropped. I sat up straight on the couch, blinking at the screen. A second notification came in moments later, this one with a photo. A picture of my car. And two people standing next to it. Tyler and my ex-boyfriend. Darren's new girlfriend only. That wasn't Darren. That was me. I stared at the image like my brain couldn't compute it. Tyler was leaning against the passenger door, laughing, holding to iced coffees. The girl next to him, long legs, auburn hair, a leather jacket I recognized. All too well was Sophia, my ex's current girlfriend. The one he started seeing 3 weeks after we broke up. The one who used to comment heart emojis on our anniversary posts. I felt my throat tighten. What was my brother doing on a date with her? I called him 5 times, no answer. I texted once, call me now. At 9:11 p.m., he finally responded with a casual, hey, what's up? I didn't reply. I couldn't. I was pacing around my apartment, phone clutched in my hand like it might explain the betrayal. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Then came the knock. Tyler walked in holding a single grocery bag with 2 bananas and a bag of chips. He looked surprised to see me standing there, arms crossed. You got the car towed, I said flatly. He blinked. Yeah, about that. I got the photo, Tyler. Silence, his face lost all color. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and then said, Cass, listen, is that what Aaron's means now? Dating your sister's ex's girlfriend? He looked ashamed for a second, then defensive. It's not what it looks like. I raised the phone. You mean this picture? The one where you're giving her a flower outside my car while it's getting ticketed? He looked down. She reached out to me last week, he muttered. We bumped into each other downtown and talked. I didn't know it would turn into anything, I laughed. But it sounded more like a cough. So you thought the best way to explore your feelings was by taking my car to woo her like a freaking Uber driver? She's not with Darren anymore. He said quietly. They broke up, and I'm supposed to what, give you my blessing? Cass, you and Darren were over months ago. You've moved on, right? Had I? Suddenly I wasn't sure. But this wasn't about Darren. This was about Tyler. He was the one I lent my car to. The one I trusted. The one I had always defended in front of our parents when he screwed up. I'd covered his missed rent, helped him out of a speeding ticket, even bailed him out of an awkward date with a girl who showed up wearing a wedding dress as a joke. And now, he'd taken the one piece of property I had left and shared and turned it into a getaway vehicle for a betrayal I didn't see coming. I swallowed hard. You're gonna pay the toll fee, and then you're gonna stay the hell out of my life for a while. Cass, come on, don't do this. It was just a date. One stupid decision. No, Tyler, I said. One stupid decision is forgetting to put gas in my car. This was calculated. He didn't say another word. He just left, keys in hand, leaving behind the faint smell of rain and regret. And I stood there, heart pounding, knowing this wasn't the end. This was just the start. I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking my phone, rereading the impound notice, staring at the timestamp like it might somehow change. But it didn't. 5:02 p.m. That was the moment my world tilted just enough to crack open an ugly truth. Tyler wasn't just reckless, he was selfish, and not just the goofy, harmless kind of selfish I'd grown used to. This was the kind that left bruises, even if it didn't involve fists. By morning, the toll fee was still unpaid. My car still impounded. And Tyler still silent. Mom called around 10 a.m. She wanted to know if I'd be picking her up for her appointment like I promised. I can't, Mom, I said, pinching the bridge of my nose. My car got towed. What? How? Ask your favorite child. She paused. What does Tyler have to do with this? I told her everything, not just the tow, the date, the photo. Sophia. By the time I finished, Mom was quiet. Then she gave a soft sigh and said, Cassie, he probably didn't mean to hurt you. He's just not the best at thinking things through, Mom. I snapped. He stole my card to take my ex's girlfriend on a date. There's a photo. What part of that sounds like oops, my bad to you? You always were hard on him. I pulled the phone away from my ear. This was what always happened. Tyler messed up, and I was expected to play the mature one, the bigger person, forgive, forget, fix it again and again. But I wasn't going to be that person this time. By noon, I took a rideshare to the impound lot and paid the $312 to fee myself. The guy behind the glass barely looked up as he slid the receipt toward me. Third Civic this week. He muttered, tell your boyfriend not to park in a red zone next time. I didn't correct him. When I got my car back, it smelled like Tyler cheap cologne and fast food wrappers. The passenger seat had Sophia's scarf still bunched up, like she left in a hurry. I stuffed it into the glove compartment and slammed it shut. I didn't want to see her face. Not even in memory. I should have driven straight home, but something pulled me west instead, past the shops, past the movie theater, to Darren's apartment. I parked across the street and stared up at the second-floor window. The blinds were open. I saw him moving around inside, folding laundry. I hated that I still knew the shape of his silhouette, the way he scratched his shoulder when he was thinking. I hated that even now, my heart gave a dull thud just seeing him. But I didn't hate him. Not the way I hated Tyler right now. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Tyler. I'm sorry, okay? I'll pay you back. I didn't mean for it to get messy. I stared at it. No mention of Sophia. No real apology. Just a weak attempt at brushing dirt under the rug. I typed back. You didn't just borrow my car. You borrowed my trust and ran it into a wall. Then I blocked his number. That night, Sophia messaged me. First time since the breakup. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Sophia. Hey, Cassie. I didn't know you two were that close. I thought you should know it was Tyler who reached out. First, I just went along with it. I didn't think it would matter anymore. I'm sorry. I stared at her words, unsure what hurt more, the fact that she thought it wouldn't matter, or the fact that she was probably right. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say to either of them. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about finally seeing the patterns I'd ignored all my life. Tyler had always been this way, thoughtless, impulsive, always acting like the world would forgive him because he smiled through his screw-ups. And I had always cleaned up after him. But not anymore. I was done being the backup plan, the one who made things right after others wrecked them for once. I was going to let someone else sit in the mess they made. The next few days passed like a storm that had already hit, silent, scattered, everything damp with aftershock. I kept busy, worked longer hours, cleaned the apartment twice over, deleted old photos, hid the scarf I'd stuffed in the glove box deep in a drawer I rarely opened. Still, the bitterness sat on my tongue like stale coffee. What got me wasn't just the betrayal, it was the pattern. How many times had I let Tyler take and take, convincing myself he didn't mean harm? Growing up, it was little things: him borrowing my bike and returning it with a flat tire, sneaking money from my wallet to buy snacks, copying my homework and blaming me when he got caught. Every time, I was told, he's your baby brother. He looks up to you. No one ever asked if I wanted to be looked up to or leaned on. I was just supposed to be proud of being dependable. Even after our parents divorced and Dad moved away, nothing changed. I stayed with Mom and Tyler started getting into trouble, skipping class, partying, flirting with lines he shouldn't cross. And I was always the buffer, talking teachers down, covering for him, making sure he didn't spiral. But this time, it wasn't a forgotten school project or a stupid party. This was personal. This was me. So when I ran into my cousin Rachel at the coffee shop that Sunday, and she asked why I looked like I'd been chewing on glass, I told her the truth. Tyler took my car to go on a date, I said flatly. With Sophia. Her eyes widened so fast I almost laughed. Sophia? You're Sophia? I nodded. Apparently she's not Darren's anymore. Rachel sat back. Okay. What? That's... wow. Are you serious? I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo. She winced. Damn, that's like betrayal with a side of slap in the face. I nodded. I blocked him. Good. But Mom's already calling, telling me to talk it out. Like I didn't already live the fallout. Rachel took a sip of her latte, then looked me dead in the eye. Cass, you're allowed to be mad. You're allowed to not forgive him. Blood doesn't mean you have to bleed for them forever. Her words hit something deep because for the first time, someone in my family wasn't telling me to be the bigger person. She was telling me I was enough. That night, I sat with the idea for hours. What did it look like to not forgive, at least not right away? What if I didn't answer his calls or come running to bail him out again? What if I stopped being the fixer? By Monday morning, my decision was made. I drove to Tyler's apartment not to reconcile, but to return something, a box. Inside it were the things he left at my place over the years: a hoodie, spare chargers, a video game controller he never came back for, a pair of sunglasses I always hated. On top of it all, I placed the scarf, folded neatly. I didn't knock. I left it at his door with a sticky note that read, "Clean slates aren't free. Don't come to me for one again." Later that evening, Mom called again. I ignored it. Then came a voicemail. "Cassie, I don't know what's going on between you two, but this isn't like you. Tyler's your brother. He's made mistakes, but he loves you." I didn't delete it, but I didn't return the call either. I was tired of being guilt-tripped into grace. That same night, I got a text from Darren. "Darren, hey, didn't want to get in the middle, but I heard about what happened. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. Tyler reached out to Sophia behind your back." I didn't know until after. I stared at the message. I hadn't talked to Darren in months. Not since we split after a slow fade out and too many unspoken resentments. Seeing his name on my screen now felt like a ghost knocking at the door. But it also made things clearer. This wasn't just some harmless coincidence. Tyler had planned it. Reached out. Crossed the line not because it was accidental but because he thought he could. Because he thought I'd take it. Again, I didn't reply to Darren either. Instead, I put my phone on silent, pulled a blanket over myself, and for the first time in a long time, allowed myself to cry, not because I'd lost something, but because I was finally letting go, not of people, but of the version of me who kept allowing them to break things she had to fix. The following week was oddly quiet. No calls from Tyler, no texts, no guilt-laced voicemails from Mom, no accidental run-ins with Sophia. It was as if the world had pressed mute on the chaos, leaving me alone with the unfamiliar sound of my own boundaries. And you know what? It was peaceful. Not easy, just peaceful. I took walks after work. I started journaling again. I even made time for things I'd long forgotten. I love painting, cooking, late-night podcasts that had nothing to do with productivity. I was beginning to remember who I was before I spent so much energy managing the wreckage of everyone else's life. But peace has a way of rattling those who benefit from your chaos. That's why, 2 Saturdays later, Tyler showed up at my door. He didn't knock right away. I saw him from the kitchen window, standing on the porch, shifting his weight like a nervous schoolboy. For a second, I thought about not answering, just letting him stand there until the message sank in. But part of me needed to see his face. I opened the door slowly, arms folded. He looked up, his face was thinner, eyes darker than I remembered. His hands were in his jacket pockets. "Hey," he said. I didn't answer. "I figured you blocked my number," he said, attempting a half smile. "I thought about writing a letter, but I knew you'd probably burn it. Still nothing for me." He sighed. "Cass, I messed up. I know that. And I'm not here to give excuses." "Then don't," I said, voice cold. "Because I don't want to hear them." He nodded, taking it like a blow he knew he deserved. "You were right," he said, "about the trust. I didn't just borrow your car, I used it for something that should have been off limits. Sophia, that was a mistake, a huge one, but it wasn't about revenge or getting at you. It was me being stupid, selfish, like I always am. That part, at least, was honest. I've been thinking about all the things you did for me growing up." He went on. "How many times you saved me, covered for me, picked up after me. You were the glue, Cass, for all of us, and I never said thank you. I never made it easy on you." He finally looked me in the eyes. "And I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it." I stayed quiet for a moment, not out of spite but out of restraint, because the Cassie he used to know would have jumped in, tried to smooth it over, soften the blow for him. But not this Cassie. This version of me was still learning what it meant to let people earn their way back in. "I appreciate you saying that," I finally said. "But Tyler, I'm not ready to pretend this didn't happen. What you did, it broke something, I know," he whispered, "and it wasn't just the car or Sophia. It was you choosing your own impulse over my dignity, and doing it without thinking twice." He nodded, eyes glassy. "You've apologized," I said. "That's a start, but it's not a reset button." He swallowed. "I'm going to pay you back for the tow, and I'll stop by Mom's more. Stop making you the middleman." I raised an eyebrow. "You'll have to. I'm not doing that anymore." There was a pause. He nodded again, slower this time, like the weight of my words was actually landing. Before he left, he reached into his pocket and handed me an envelope. "It's not much, but it's the start of what I owe you." I didn't open it until after he was gone. Inside was a check for $200 and a folded note. "You deserved better from your brother. I'm going to try to be him one day at a time." I didn't cry. I just sat there on my couch, envelope in hand, realizing how good it felt to be heard. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was movement. And in families like mine, even that was rare. Later that night, I got a text from Rachel. "Heard from the grapevine Tyler showed up. You okay?" I replied, "I think I am, not fixed, but finally facing forward." She sent back a heart emoji. then another. Proud of you, also? Brunch. This weekend you need carbs. I smiled. Maybe I did. Because while some things in my life had cracked open and spilled out ugly truths, something better had taken root underneath boundaries. Self-respect. And maybe, just maybe hope. The thing about boundaries is that once you start building them, you realize how many open doors you've left behind. And how many people felt entitled to walk through them for the first time in years. I started saying no. Not just to Tyler, to everyone. No. I couldn't cover that shift. No. I wasn't attending that awkward family dinner where I'd be expected to smile and pretend nothing had happened. No. I didn't want to keep the group chat alive where everyone made jokes but no one talked about real things. It felt like a detox, lonely at times, yes, but clean. Rachel and I went to brunch that weekend. She greeted me with two mimosas and a tight hug. I'm proud of you, she said as we sat down. Most people don't learn to choose themselves until after they're already broken. I smiled. I still feel cracked. Cracked is good. It means you're not hollow anymore. We talked for 2 hours about Tyler, about the weird guilt that crept in when I wasn't being the good one, and about how Sophia had finally posted a soft launch photo of herself and Tyler on Instagram. Oh? Yeah, Rachel said, pulling out her phone. She turned off comments. Guess she knew what was coming. I didn't look. I thought I'd want to see the face that had once been the center of my world, now smiling next to the person who had cracked me open. But I didn't need to feed that pain anymore. It had lived in me long enough. That same evening, I took out a notebook I hadn't opened in years. It was filled with old lists, dreams, goals, plans I had made when I was 22 and believed anything was possible. Some were laughable now. Move to Seattle, marry someone who plays guitar, open a bakery and name it Butter Half, but some still whispered to me, travel alone, learn how to be okay without fixing someone, make peace with saying goodbye. So I circled the third one, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for healing to come find me. I was going to choose it, one small act at a time. The first one, calling Mom. I waited until Monday night when I knew she'd be winding down with her favorite true crime podcast. When she picked up, her voice was laced with hesitation. Cassie, hi Mom. A pause. Then, it's so good to hear your voice. We made small talk of first weather, work, some neighbor drama she always loved retelling. But then she asked, are you and Tyler okay now? And for once, I didn't feel pressure to pretend. We're working on it, I said. But I need you to understand something. Okay, I'm not going to keep being the glue, Mom. I can't hold everything together while everyone else pulls it apart. She was quiet. Then, surprisingly, I know. I didn't want to lose both of you. You won't. But things are going to look different now. I can live with different, she said softly. As long as you're okay. I will be. After we hung up, I realized something. She hadn't defended Tyler. She hadn't begged me to sweep it all under the rug. Maybe my boundaries were doing more than protecting me. They were teaching the people around me, too. Later that week, Tyler sent me another message. Tyler, I've started therapy. Just wanted you to know. Short, simple, no pressure. It made me pause. I didn't respond right away. But I didn't block him either. Because there's a difference between shutting a door and locking it forever. A few days later, I walked past the same impound lot where my car had been towed. It was strange seeing it again. Cold metal fences. A line of silent vehicles, each with their own story of mistakes. I pulled over, sat there for a few minutes. And then I laughed. Not because any of it was funny, but because I had survived it. The hurt, the betrayal, the endless cycle of being second to someone else's poor choices. And I was still here. I turned the ignition, rolled down the window, and let the wind rush through the car that had once carried a lie but now carried only me. Grief doesn't always look like sobbing in the dark. Sometimes, it looks like driving past familiar places and realizing they don't sting the same way anymore. Sometimes it's as subtle as a silence between songs when your playlist shuffles. And for the first time, you don't think of them. That was me the next few weeks. There wasn't a grand transformation. No cinematic moment where I cut off all my hair or screamed on a mountaintop. Healing came quietly, in skipped heartbeats that started to beat normally again, in dinners eaten without scrolling, in sleep uninterrupted by the ache of betrayal. Then came the invitation. A wedding. Not Sophia's. Thankfully that would have been its own cruel joke, but Darren's. He was getting married in upstate New York in the fall. Apparently, he and I were still mutuals on Facebook, and he'd sent a message that I had left unread until that morning. Cass, I know it's probably weird to get this, but I wanted you to know there's no bad blood. I've moved on and I hope you have to. If you're comfortable, I'd love to see you there. If not, no pressure at all. I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of things: confusion, curiosity, and strangely, peace. Darren and I had ended on a quiet note. We weren't Toxic, just distant. He hadn't betrayed me, not really, if anything. He'd been the wake-up call I didn't know I needed. Proof that love without presence wasn't love at all. Still, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. Rachel was, of course, all for it. Go, she said, laying on my couch with a slice of pizza in her hand. Not for him, for you. Closure in a cute dress with good cake. What's not to like? I rolled my eyes. It's 6 hours away. You need a road trip and a weekend away from this city. She wasn't wrong. By Friday, I found myself packing an overnight bag. Not because I wanted to see Darren or be part of a memory that no longer belonged to me, but because I was learning how to show up for myself. On the way there, I played music I loved. I took detours through small towns and stopped at a farmer's market for apples and candles. I even ate lunch alone at a roadside diner without checking my phone once. It felt like I was writing a love letter to myself in motion. The wedding was beautiful. Golden leaves falling, fairy lights strung between trees, laughter that didn't feel forced. And Darren, standing beside someone who clearly adored him, his new fiancée, Jenna, who glowed without needing an audience. I stayed near the back, didn't drink much, didn't dance, but I watched and I realized I wasn't bitter, not anymore. Darren caught my eye once, raised his glass in a gentle toast from across the lawn. I nodded back. That was all we needed. Closure doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's in the quiet way you can say, you were part of my story, but not the ending. That night, I stayed in a tiny airbnb near the woods. No Wi-Fi, just a fire pit and a window with moonlight. I lit the candle I'd bought earlier, took a long shower, and for the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking up anxious about what I hadn't said or fixed. The next morning, my phone had a text. Tyler, I just wanted to say I miss you. I know that's selfish, but I do. Hope you're okay. It made my chest ache, but not in the same shattered way. He was still trying, and I was still healing. So I replied, me, I'm okay. Working on it. Hope you are too. No promises, no open doors, just honesty. When I got back to the city, I made a list, not a to-do list, not goals, just truths. You can love someone and still say no. You can grieve someone who's still alive. You're allowed to walk away even if they say sorry. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's control. Boundaries are a form of love, especially when they're for yourself. I hung that list on my fridge. Every morning, I read it like scripture because after everything, I wasn't just surviving, I was starting over on my terms. One quiet Sunday morning, as I sipped coffee on my balcony, Tyler called, not a text, a real call. I hesitated before answering, not because I didn't want to talk, but because I wasn't sure what version of him I'd be getting. The old Tyler, who deflected and minimized, or the one who left a check and started therapy. Hey, I said softly. Hey. He replied, I wasn't sure you'd pick up. I wasn't either. There was a pause. Then, can I ask you something? No pressure, depends on what it is. He gave a nervous chuckle. Do you think we could grab coffee sometime, just to talk? No expectations. I looked out at the street below. People walking dogs, kids on bikes, the kind of ordinary peace I had worked hard to rebuild. I think I said slowly we could meet, but not today. And not just because you feel bad. This has to be real, Ty, not a guilt trip, not a way to make yourself feel better. I get that. He said quickly, I mean it, I do. I didn't answer right away. Let him sit in that space of uncertainty, something I used to rush to fill for him. I'll think about it, I finally said. But whatever happens, I need you to understand that our relationship doesn't go back to what it was. It can't. That version of us broke, I know, he said, voice softer. I just want a chance to build something new. And for the first time, I believe he meant it. After we hung up, I sat still for a while, letting the warmth of the mug in my hand settle into my bones. There was no dramatic music playing, no sweeping scene, just a small shift, a thread of trust, slowly stitching through torn fabric. The next week, Rachel and I planned a girls' night, just movies and too much popcorn. She was still my lighthouse, the friend who reminded me that healing didn't mean isolation. At one point during the second movie, she turned to me with a sideways smile. You know, you're different now. Different how? I asked, stronger, quieter, in a powerful way. You used to bend until you broke. Now you bend. And I think you'd snap back before anyone even saw you fall. I blinked, taken aback. I don't feel that strong, that's the thing, she said. Strength never feels like strength until you realize how much you're carrying, without letting it crush you. Her words stayed with me. They echoed again a few nights later, when I got an email from Sophia. Yes-Sophia. The subject line. Read, you probably won't read this. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Inside, a wall of text. No punctuation for several lines, just an outpouring of emotions. She rambled about how things with Tyler were complicated, how she never meant to hurt me, how she felt like the villain in her own story. and that she knew she didn't deserve forgiveness, but she hoped I found peace. There was no request to meet. No fake flattery, just words. For a long time, I stared at the screen, and then I deleted the email. Not out of anger, but because it no longer mattered. Her guilt wasn't mine to carry. I was learning to let go of things without needing to make them feel better first. The next morning, I went for a run in the park. The same path I used to take when things with Darren were falling apart. Back then, I ran to escape. Now, I ran to stay grounded. At the halfway point, I stopped by a lake bench, breath visible in the crisp morning air, and I thought about how far I'd come. I had survived, watching my brother lie to my face, seeing someone I loved betray that love, being blamed, then silenced, then abandoned. But more than that, I had learned that peace was something you fought for, not waited on, that forgiveness was a choice, not a surrender, that you can be proud of who you're becoming, even if you're still not sure where you're going. I didn't know what would happen next. Maybe Tyler and I would rebuild something different, slower, wiser. Maybe not. Maybe I'd fall in love again. Maybe I'd fall in love with myself first. All I knew for sure was this: the version of Cassie who once let her worth be measured by how much she could absorb from others. She was gone, and in her place stood someone learning to breathe deeply. To say no without flinching. To walk away, not out of bitterness, but out of self-trust. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Fall rolled in quietly, like a soft exhale. The leaves changed, the air cooled, and my life settled into a rhythm I hadn't realized I was craving. One afternoon in October, as I closed my laptop after a long day of remote work, I got a knock at the door. It was Tyler. Unannounced. I froze. For a second before opening it, he stood there in a gray hoodie, holding two coffee cups, and wearing a look I hadn't seen before. Not pleading, not smug, just human. "I was in the neighborhood," he said. "Figured if you weren't home, I'd just leave these on your doorstep. It's the vanilla oat thing you like, or used to like." I let him in, not because I owed him anything, but because I was curious, not about us, that ship had sailed, but about him, the person he was becoming. He sat at the edge of my couch like a guest, like someone who understood his place wasn't guaranteed. "I'm not staying long," he said. Just wanted to return something. From his pocket, he pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was wrinkled, a little faded. He handed it to me. It was the list. The one I'd made when I was younger. The one I'd left in the glove compartment of my car years ago. Move to Seattle. Marry someone who plays guitar. Open a bakery. Learn to be okay without fixing someone. I stared at it. "You kept this." "I found it the day I got the car towed," he said, sheepishly. I was sitting there, waiting on the tow truck, feeling like a complete idiot. And I opened the glove box, trying to find the registration, and this fell out. He paused. "It messed me up, Cass, reading it. Knowing how far you were from all those dreams because of how much you gave to me." I looked up at him, unsure what to say. "I don't expect you to believe I've changed," he continued. "But I'm trying. I've been clean for 6 months. Therapy's hard, real hard. I'm starting to see stuff I didn't want to look at." There was silence between us again, heavy, but not sharp. "I used to think I could make up for everything," he added. "But I can't. All I can do is say I'm sorry, and keep working on not needing to be rescued." I nodded slowly. "That's all anyone can do." He stood. "I'll go now," he said, and walked toward the door, but then paused, his hand on the knob. "I loved him, you know, Darren, not like that. But he was more than a friend to me. I guess that's why I hated him for dating you." I felt replaced, like you picked someone who didn't even know the years we had behind us. I swallowed. "You were my family," I said. "But I needed to build a future, and you kept pulling me backward." "I know that now," he said, quietly. "It just took losing you to see it." When the door clicked shut behind him, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat down, list in hand, and smiled, because I realized something. Tyler finally saw the weight I carried. And not because I screamed it at him, but because I stepped back and let him feel the absence of it. That was the power of boundaries, of finally saying, "This is mine, and I won't bleed to keep you warm anymore." A week later, I finally booked the trip I'd always talked about, Seattle. I didn't know if I'd love it, didn't know if I'd move there, or just spend a week wandering cafes and bookstores. But I was going, alone. For me, when Rachel hugged me goodbye at the airport, she slipped a small card into my hand. "Don't open it until you're on the plane," she said. I waited until we were at cruising altitude, clouds like frosting below. Me. The card read, "This is what becoming yourself looks like. Scary, brave, beautiful. Go live it." I closed my eyes and let the words settle. Tyler's apology didn't fix everything. Sophia's guilt didn't undo the betrayal. Darren's peace didn't erase our distance. But I wasn't living in their shadows anymore. I was writing my own chapters, and they weren't built on chaos. They were quiet, steady, real. Seattle was rain-soaked and moody in all the right ways. I walked miles every day through Pike Place Market, under dripping eaves, past bookstores tucked into alleyways. I drank too much coffee, journaled like I was writing my own memoir, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. The third morning, I sat in a little bakery on the corner of Pine and Third. It smelled like cinnamon and espresso, and the woman behind the counter smiled like she knew how many broken hearts had been mended. Between those walls, I opened my laptop, more out of habit than necessity. I wasn't working. I wasn't writing to please anyone. I just wanted to create for myself. And then I found myself staring at the blank document. Not with fear, but with something close to anticipation. So I started typing. Not a list this time. Not a plan, just a letter to myself. Dear Cassie, you've always loved too hard. You've given too much, said sorry when you didn't have to, and waited for people who never showed up. And yet you're still here. You survived being lied to, used, abandoned. But more than that, you learned. You stopped mistaking pain for loyalty. You stopped thinking sacrifice was the only way to prove your worth. You are enough even when no one claps for you. Even when no one comes back to say thank you. Even when it's just you in a quiet morning in a city you don't belong to. You are enough. Not because of what you carry, but because of who you've become after putting it down. With love. I don't know how long I sat there, but when I looked up, a woman at the next table smiled at me like she could feel the shift radiating off my skin. That evening, I took the ferry to Bainbridge Island, just to watch the sun dip into the water. I thought about Tyler, about the version of him who had needed me to break in order to survive. And I thought about the man he was trying to become, not for me, but for himself. I thought about Sophia, how pain doesn't always make villains. Sometimes it just makes people do selfish things to fill empty spaces. And Darren, the man I almost planned forever with, but who was never meant to hold that much of me. None of them were mine anymore. Not in the way I once begged the universe for, but they had each left something behind. Not scars, lessons. I no longer looked at the wreckage and saw a graveyard. Now I saw a garden, something to be planted from, something to grow through. Back in my hotel room, I flipped through the photos I'd taken that week. None of them were posed, just little fragments of light and color and peace. Proof that I was finding joy in places no one else had carved out for me. Rachel texted that night. Rachel, so, you moving there and opening that bakery or what? I laughed. Me, not yet, but I think I might come back soon, for longer. Rachel, I'm proud of you, Cass. I hope you are too. And I was, maybe for the first time ever, because this wasn't survival anymore, this was living. No more making myself small to fit into other people's comfort zones. No more handing out forgiveness like coupons just to keep the peace. Now, I was choosing me. Again and again and again. 2 months later, on a gray December morning, I stood in my kitchen back home, watching the first snow of the season fall outside my window. The world felt quieter somehow, not because it had changed, but because I had. The chaos wasn't louder than my peace anymore. I stirred my coffee slowly, and the faint buzz of my phone on the counter pulled my attention. It was a voicemail. Tyler. I hadn't spoken to him since Seattle. I let his message go to audio, waiting a moment before pressing play. Hey Cass, I just wanted to say, I signed the papers, rehab's done, I'm back in meetings, doing the steps. I'm still screwing things up, but at least now I see it when I do. Anyway, I don't expect you to call back. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be the kind of brother you deserved back then. I sat with that message longer than I expected, and then I deleted it, not out of malice, but because I didn't need proof anymore. I knew who I was and I knew what I'd survived. Later that day, I got a package at the door. No return address. Inside, I found a worn, navy blue baseball cap with a note tucked in the brim. You always said I'd lose this thing, but somehow it survived, just like you did, D. Darren. I stared at the hat, the one he wore on our third date, the one I'd threatened to steal because it looked better on me. The note didn't ask for anything. It didn't say he missed me, just an acknowledgement. I placed the cap in the back of my closet, not as a keepsake, but as closure. Some ghosts don't need exorcising, just burying with grace. That weekend, I met Rachel at our favorite brunch spot. She was 6 months into a new relationship, glowing in that rare way love brings out when it's healthy, mutual, and kind. So, she said between bites of avocado toast, have you told anyone about your plan yet? I grinned. Nope, just you. Well, she leaned in. Tell me again. So I could scream appropriately. I pulled out my phone and showed her the email confirmation. One-way ticket to Seattle, January 12th. Apartment lease signed. She let out a full gasp and then launched across the table to hug me, nearly knocking over her mimosa. You're really doing it? I am. Are you scared? Terrified. I admitted, but in the best way. Moving wasn't running. anymore. It wasn't about escaping heartbreak or rebuilding faster than the pain could catch me. It was about choosing a new chapter, a new skyline, a new version of me. When I got home that evening, I sat down to update my list. The same one I'd written at 24 and forgotten in the glove box of a borrowed car. I crossed off a few lines, moved to Seattle, learned to be okay without fixing someone, start again. Even if your voice shakes at it, fall in love again, kept it blank, hopeful, not urgent. And then I wrote something new at the very bottom: protect your peace like it's oxygen, because it is. I folded the list and placed it in the same wooden box where I kept my passport, spare keys, and letters I'd never send. Some things aren't meant to be carried anymore. Others? They're worth holding close, no matter how much time passes. On January 12th, I boarded that plane. No entourage, no goodbye party, just one bag, a quiet heart, and a future that no longer terrified me. I watched the ground shrink beneath me and whispered to myself, you let him borrow the car. He wrecked more than the tires. But you got out and walked. And somehow, that led you home.